Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Stryker, and LuckyEevee, and our special guest today is Sharvoun. Today is our 25th episode, and we're discussing 2001's Jurassic Park III for our first ever theme month of Jurassic July, so let's get things started.
For any confusion out there before we continue, it's Sharvoun, but in any case, let's begin.
Sorry about that.
I don't care. Let's just continue.
Absolutely,
but I like to call the Roger Moore of the Jurassic Park series. The Roger Moore of the Jurassic Park
exactly.
Yeah.
It's the oddball of the series, but it is one of my favorites. It's the shortest of the Jurassic Park movies. It is the first movie in the franchise to not be directed by Steven Spielberg or to be based on a book. And originally, the original concept for the movie, it was going to be more like a slasher, where a group of teenagers land on Isla Sorna and are picked off one by dinosaurs. So it's something like, I guess...
Friday the 13th?
Something like that, yeah, but with velociraptors.
I would pay money to see that. I would pay money to see that.
That would have been very interesting, but thankfully it was rewritten into the movie we have today, which would be a lot better.
Oh, it went through a lot of rewrites. Sharvoun will definitely...
It still turned out really well, I think.
Yeah, the rewrites got so bad that the director, Joe Johnston, who you might recognize from Jumanji and The Rocketeer, actually considered quitting on numerous times.
That's a shame.
Yeah,
Production problems like that's always a pain. But yeah, right off the bat, I feel like this movie gets off to a really cool start with the opening credits shaking like the water with the T-Rex. And that is really such a cool way to open the movie, followed by the title card, and the 3 is made by the claws being shredded to it.
When I saw
little touches like that, I am a sucker for things like that in movies.
When I saw that for the first time, I was like, this is definitely a 2000s movie, so I'm just gonna...
Yeah, when they were able to actually do stuff like that.
Yeah, like we were joking a little earlier, like we were talking about like Komodo dragonons, like making spoof of like the beginning, like we've heard
like
some very
it's the most
tragic
dangerous
things.
island in the world, and those animals will come rip you apart. By the way,
it's totally worth it.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. The movie opens with Eric Kirby and his stepfather taking a trip to Isla Sorna, which is now restricted. They're doing a paragliding sort of thing with a parachute. And right off the bat, we start off with an interesting thing. The captain of the boat and the driver are killed when they go to a mysterious fog. Now, we never see what killed them. I think it's supposed to be the pterodons are what got them, but again, they're trying to keep that a secret for a little while.
I'm going to put a pin on that because there's actually one thing that does prove that you might be right about that. And that's during the pterodon scene, but we'll get to that. But also, I also want to point out a little, if you're those kind of people who just who are turned off to movies with bad effects, the green screening for the paragliding scenes is going to be a warning sign for you.
It's not that bad. I feel like for 2001, there were a lot of worse effects, you know? I feel like for the time, this looks really good. I mean, it is actually even better than the originals, I will say, in some aspects, and we'll get to that when we get to that. But Eric and his stepfather basically accidentally parachute to the island by cutting off. And then we cut to the returning character of this movie, which is Alan Grant. And I guess I'm gonna say this right now. I feel Alan Grant is a way more compelling protagonist than Ian Malcolm, in my opinion.
Honestly, he is. I will say that Ian is a great character, but
he's great. He's great, but Ian to me is more of a side character.
Yeah, when he's
reacting to things.
Exactly, like when he's used in a specific amount capacity, like in a limited capacity, when he's sort of the observer, the support, the comic relief, that's when he works best.
Yeah, exactly.
When he's the main
Making him the main focus is kind of, like I say, I did like Lost World a lot more than I did when we did the episode last week, but I will say that, again, I do enjoy this more. And I think why I like it, again, is because Alan Grant, the part where he's playing with Ellie's son about the dinosaurs, trying to teach him how accurate they would be, is really such a sweet moment in that.
Yeah, I feel like anybody with a small child who never listens, like Ellie's like quip, like he's 3, wait till he's 5, like
exactly, great moment. But yeah, Grant and Ellie did not get together, which is
That's something I was very
heartbreaking if you know what like the first one, but it's also realistic, and it's in a way that does kind of work.
Yeah, so, I agree on that.
Yeah, definitely. And later on, they would try to rectify this in Jurassic World Dominion, but we'll get to that when we talk about that movie.
Honestly,
so the movie then. Sorry,
when I saw videos of that, when I was like, Alan, you sure you want to be with Edley? Because she married and then divorced. That's kind of a red flag for me.
Okay, we get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
you can see. Yeah, I get it. So anyway, the movie. No, that's okay. No.
You're cool, man.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. So yeah, the movie then cuts to Alan giving a lecture at the university about paleontology, and I just love the part when he asks questions about the audience. All the students only want to hear about Jurassic Park and the attack in San Diego, which is hilarious little bit of continuity there.
Yeah, it is hilarious.
There is also something. Yeah, it is great. There was also a fun Easter egg that I didn't notice until my most recent viewing. You can see Udesky at the lecture. He's way in the back, but he's actually there. Udesky is one of the mercenaries hired to get Eric Kirby off the island, and we'll meet them a little bit more.
For those who look at Udesky and say, "Why do I know that guy?" Because Udesky is played by Michael Jeter, who's best known for who I recognize as the clown from Air Bud, but others might remember him from movies like Patch Adams, The Fisher King, and others. He's a really well-respected character actor who sadly lost his life in 2003. May he rest in peace.
Michael Jeter was amazing. He was great in The Green Mile as the Cajun prisoner. He is excellent.
I know him. Yes, I knew it was from Green Mile.
Yes, but there is one thing that he did do that I am going to recommend everyone. If you're listening to this podcast right now, after this episode is over, go on YouTube, search in the search bar, Michael Jeter Grand Hotel Tony's, and watch the video. That man could dance. It is absolutely mind-blowing how talented this man was.
Oh, man. Quick tangent for a second, but last night I was doing Jackbox, and I hear John Travolta, and I hear that, and all I can think of is John Travolta dancing, which...
yeah. But yeah, Grant basically makes the claim that the dinosaurs on Jurassic Park are not real. They are just, manufactured theme park islands, and nobody will get him on the island for any purpose, which of course we will find out is not true. Then the movie cuts for the first time to the mercenaries, and I always found this so funny that the mercenaries they're to play as these big, tough guys, and they are really almost comically inept. They're shooting at a stationary plane like the dinosaurs aren't even going to move or anything.
Hold on, I'll be right
back. It's things like that. Go ahead, take your time.
I've got to step out for a second. The phone's ringing. Sorry.
Okay, take your time. It's all good. We'll continue. So but yeah, also the mercenaries, Cooper and Nash, they are, like I said, I do enjoy how the movie builds them up to being basically these, badasses that are going to, like Tembo or like Muldoon, and when they actually get to the island, they almost instantly die. It is a really fun little bit of subversion there. And
honestly, it is.
Yeah, because you really think they're going to be the ones who are going to, survive and live on, and the one who lives the longest is the, least combat ready one, Udesky. Right. So then we cut to a dig site, which is the first time we've actually seen one since JP1, and we get to see Alan Grant's sidekick for this movie being Billy. And he's a pretty good character, good character actor playing him and all. And
except he makes probably makes one of the dumbest
moves in the franchise. He does.
I'm gonna let you have the honor of explaining what it is, and I'm gonna go on a tangent.
We will. We are gonna get to that. Believe me, we are going to get to that moment in the movie.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is. It is a very stupid movie. Stupid move in the movie. But yeah, the 3D printed Raptor voice box is a cool concept, and it does come back into play later on.
Also,
and I do like the effect of Grant having a face of unbridled horror when he hears the raptor noises emitting from the voice box.
I love that look too.
He's going a very nice touch.
PTSD. Yeah. I will say this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
PTSD.
Yeah. At the time, it would have been probably laughable, but nowadays with AI technology, sculpting, and 3D printing, I'm telling myself it could be possible. Like,
yeah, no, we understand, right? Yeah, it definitely is, especially with like. Don't forget, this is 2001. Stuff like that didn't really exist back then, but now it is definitely more of a possibility that something like that can exist. So yeah, then we cut to Mr. Kirby, who shows up at the dig site to invite Grant to dinner with his wife. Mr. Kirby is played by William H. Macy, who is a really, really fantastic actor. He's been in so many good things.
He was in Fargo.
Best known for Fargo.
If you haven't seen Fargo, check it out. And honestly,
one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yes. Yep. Also, I will say this right off the bat before we get into this: William H. Macy and his wife. Of all the Jurassic Park characters, they're probably one of the lowest of the IQ. They're probably some of the dumbest people.
But they are actually fun characters. I will say this: they are enjoyable characters. I will say that much.
Yeah, absolutely. And enjoyable, but still stupid.
Yeah, I know. They do make some bonehead moves, including one we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, Mrs. Kirby is played by Tia Leone, who was actually Nicolas Cage's wife at this time. And she's done probably a bunch of work that you've seen. So the Kirbys claim that they've done extreme experiences, and they want to finally go and see Isla Sorna, and they're going to pay Grant very handsomely for it by funding his dig site. So, of course, Grant can't say no, and they're off on the plane to go to Isla Sorna. So Billy talking about, his hang gliding experiences is another nice little bit of foreshadowing that comes into play. Mm-hmm. And now we get to probably the most iconic moment of this movie, in which Grant falls asleep on the plane is completely empty, and then he looks over and there's a raptor on the next seat, and it says, Alan! That is, even though it's comical, even though it is comical, even though I had to do it, I just had to mimic it, but even though it's comical, it's also kind of sad because it shows that Grant is still haunted by the experience so much.
Yeah, like
it is something that it's silly, but when you actually start to think about it,
it's sad. Like
it is a lot more meaningful.
It's pretty haunting, and honestly, like the first time I saw that scene was like Alan Grant was like, let me think here. Oh, it was like Nostalgia Critic's review of Jurassic Park 3, where like that particular moment haunted him throughout the entire review. And like a little bit in other ones.
The critic It even went on through several reviews. One of my favorites is when a character introduces himself as Alan, the raptor pops out of the side trying to scare the critic, but he has a gun pointed to him, and he's like,
okay. Yeah. But yeah, another joke that I like in the movie itself is the mercenaries being almost comically out of place on the plane. And like, I think Cooper's one that says, when Billy asks, how do you know each other? We know from each other from church.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that it's really cute, and shame that they don't live longer, but okay. So
I could have
shots
used
of the
more
dinosaurs when we actually get to see them on the island flying over are done in CGI, and they look pretty good. I will say this, it does look better than Lost World, even though most of this movie takes place during the daytime. It actually does have pretty good effects. Now, there are some little hiccups here and there in some parts of the movie, but for the most part, I will say the CGI on this is really well done, and especially with like the main antagonist, which we are going to get to in a second.
Well, I will say
the Kirbys intend to land on the island.
I'm going to say this.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly, but I will say this: they're not awful effects. There are points where the effects are better than the others. We'll get to those, but one thing I will say for those who say these are awful effects, 1 year later, The Mummy 2 would come out with The Rock as the Scorpion King. Enough said.
Same year, 2001.
Oh God! I love that movie. PS2 Dwayne Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
I actually like that movie.
Yeah, CGI could be a lot worse. From that time.
Also,
the Kirbys intend to land on the island, much to the shock of Grant, leading Grant to get knocked out by Cooper the mercenary. And now we cut to, Grant waking up, and this is another moment that, at least for me, is iconic. Dr. Grant says that's a bad idea.
What's a bad idea?
Dr. Grant says that's a bad idea.
What's a bad idea?
What's a bad idea?
I love it. I love that moment. It is almost like an in-joke in my family, that scene. It really is a sequence that is like I say, it shouldn't be that funny, but it really, really is.
I'd like to point out that I give him credit that when Alan wakes up, he's like, "Please don't tell me we're on the island." His assistant, what's his name again? Like, he doesn't respond with
Billy.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, but Billy doesn't respond with
okay.
Well, I won't tell you. I won't tell you. Don't worry. Like, and then they're not that low to go for that obvious a joke. Like,
I know. Yeah. That is good. They did that too. But yeah, the ensuing dinosaur roar is said to be larger than a T-Rex, and of course the mercenaries leave, except for Cooper, who is left on the island. And the scene where he's like crying on the runway, begging for them to stop, is legit actually scary to see this like guy who is depicted as a big tough bad guy. He's just like begging for them to stop, screaming at them. And we get our first reveal of the main antagonist dinosaur.
The Spinosaurus.
Yeah, she snatches up Cooper in her jaws, and the Spinosaurus has a really, really good design. I mean, granted, it is based on, fossil records and that, but they actually mix CGI with animatronics for the Spinosaurus really, really well. I think that, again, they really put a lot of effort into this. And
they did.
There's parts, again, where I can't tell which is CGI and which is animatronic. I feel like this is a big step up from Lost World in terms of animation quality in some parts. So the Spinosaurus basically destroys the airplane, causing them to crash into the trees. And then the second mercenary, Nash, gets eaten by the Spinosaurus.
That one was horrific for me because he is
eating and attacking him.
And he's basically trying to beg for help, like, help me, get me out of here, please. Like,
and
he's begging for his life.
No, exactly. That's like what happened with Cooper again. The other mercenary, is completely helpless in this situation. Far from what they thought when they were in the airfield blowing up like abandoned planes like they were dinosaurs. And like I say, the Spinosaurus here is actually an animatronic, and it looks really good. Like its snout, the way it like snaps at them is excellent. And the entire plane sequence with the basically whole remain of the plane crashing to the ground and rolling, which again was another practical set, really well done. It is another fun sequence. And when they finally get free, they come across a T-Rex. And now we get to the part of the
T-Rex.
Yeah, exactly. And the T-Rex then has a fight with the Spinosaurus, and there is a reason why this fight is so short. It was originally scripted to be a lot longer. What happened, the Spinosaurus animatronic, when they put it up against the T-Rex animatronic, it almost ripped it apart in like a couple of hits.
Oh my god. So
they basically had to, when they realized this mistake, they had to like speed up the footage and add more CGI. So unfortunately, we were kind of robbed of a really cool dinosaur fight sequence if we only had a little less powerful animatronic on the Spinosaurus.
Yeah, what I will say though is I want to point out that apparently they said that it was leaking oil like blood, and I like to think that kind of horrified people on set. Like the following scene,
absolutely.
I can see that.
The following scene after the Spinosaurus kills the T-Rex points out a small problem I do kind of a pet peeve I have with the film, and that's of course when as soon as they cut away from the Spinosaurus, it cuts from the Spinosaurus roaring to Alan Grant punching William H. Macy off screen, his wife getting behind him, and then Alan Grant asking, "What's going on here?" And then it just cuts randomly to William H. Macy holding out a photo of his son. Like, you could have done those
and
two
explaining
things.
Why they had to take Grant there, which is because the Costa Rican and U.S. governments didn't help the Kirbys. I never noticed that before, and to be honest, that's not the kind of thing I guess that would bug me about this movie. To me, the flow of events always made sense. I never noticed it like that before.
My pet peeve is that I'm a filmmaker, but I like to consider myself a big fan of filmmaking, but I keep on telling myself, you could have done those two things at the same time. Like, you could have had a shot of him pulling out his wallet and showing it to Grant. Like, it wouldn't have taken that much longer. It's just a personal pet peeve of mine. You can.
Yeah, I can see it. Everybody has one of those things in terms of like a movie, like a sequence or something like that.
But it does point out.
So we find out that. Sorry.
It points out something interesting is that unlike the previous two, this one has a different feel, which is clear because this is not Spielberg directing this time. It's Joe Johnston, who's similar in many respects, but also different. So if you're really paying attention, you can definitely tell this has a slight different feel than from a regular Spielberg film. But we'll get. But I want to.
You can see that, but it still does copy the tone of Jurassic Park. I feel. That's my opinion anyway. But yeah, getting back to the actual story of it, it turns out that Grant had never been on Isla Sorna. He was on Isla Nublar, and it's Site B, leading to a great line from Udesky. You mean there are 2 islands with dinosaurs on them?
I would react.
Yeah, that was a fun line.
Yeah. Udesky, again, is a real fun character, and I do like that they keep him around for at least half the movie. That was a good decision, because more Michael Jeter in anything is always welcome.
Michael Jeter is always a win.
U.S. and Costa Rican. Yeah, exactly. So the Costa Rican and U.S. governments didn't help the Kirby. These causing them to take really extreme measures by basically kidnapping Dr. Grant to the island. And after hearing that Eric had been on the island for about 3 weeks, Grant decides to make for the coast.
Weeks.
And 8. Wow, that was only 3, but still 8 weeks. Right. So anyway, the part with Mr. Kirby talking to his wife about being a champion swimmer, and that is another call forward that we'll see later. It turns out that Mr. Kirby is a fraud because he doesn't know how high K2 is, and it turns out Kirby Enterprises doesn't exist. Or excuse me, it does exist, but probably in one of my favorite reveals of any movie. It's just like a paint and tile store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, one aspect I will say does drive me nuts is when he's like, my wife and I are divorced. Throughout the film, I wouldn't have guessed. Maybe they could have been in trouble, but I just tell myself, I don't feel like they're divorced. I don't know if it's just a personal thing for me, but why did they have to be divorced other than having that one guy with that kid? I'm terrible with names again. With that kid,
Eric.
Yeah.
Eric. But Eric. They keep on screaming his name idiotically. I'm just like, that is just hilarious. It just goes to show how stupid these guys really are.
Exactly. Yeah. I can definitely see that as well. I definitely can see that. So now Udesky has another great line while the Kirbys basically argue with each other. He goes to Grant and Billy and says, "If we split up, I want to go with you guys." And again, another great line from him. Then they find the parachute as well as a video camera showing what had happened to Eric and his stepfather up until they actually land on the island. Then we actually see Eric's stepfather, or rather the remains of his rotted skeleton falling out of the basically the parachute.
Even though
for this movie, especially for this movie, is really creepy. It actually looks, significantly. It's not like in the other movies, I think, where the deaths are fine, but you don't really see the effects of them. That's one thing that I feel this movie, even though it doesn't have a lot of kills, the ones it does have are very impactful. Horrific. That's the
one thing that bothers me is what the hell happened to him? Did Eric just leave him on? Did Eric just leave Ben on the parasail? Kind of a douchey kid.
I feel like he got stuck in there, and I feel like he got stuck in the tree, and he couldn't get out, and then the raptors or one of the dinosaurs got him. I feel like that's what was intended to happen. He got stuck in one of the trees.
Wouldn't it be better if they were looking at the video camera, when Eric says he's gonna get him down, if there's a roar heard off screen and it's left to our imagination? What the hell? I'd like to think that Ben told Eric to run. He died a hero telling Eric to run. But
that's something that definitely it could have been added. Maybe they had another draft
honestly,
of that.
I don't think they had enough time for a lot of things.
I feel like that too. They had to get this done. And
one behind the scenes, we know it went through a lot of rewrites. But one thing that I will always say is a kiss of death for a film's reputation is if the rewrites happen while it's filming. That's what happened. They were rewriting while they were filming.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, that's not really a deal breaker because For me, it was still, it was a successful movie. It got decent reviews, and it was relatively popular amongst an audience. I don't feel like it's like a colossal bomb or like a mistake, like people say. It's one that I genuinely enjoy.
Yeah, but
so now the Kirbys. Sorry.
Yeah, it's true. But what I'm trying to say, I'll tell you about it later. But back on the Kirbys, they find
that's okay.
They do something very stupid and bring attention to something, like. They bring attention to the raptors.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Yeah, exactly. And now we actually get to the part where they discover the raptor's nest, and the raptor eggs, of course, come into play later on, which we will get to in a little bit. But
put a pin on
they find one of the abandoned laboratories. Yep, another key element of the movie, exactly. And the abandoned lab that they find is really such a cool setting with details about how they made the dinosaurs and whatnot, the actual process of, with the eggs and the dinosaur, fetuses and the formaldehyde is a great touch. And
it actually builds up to a great scare.
Thing that I didn't notice until my most recent viewing, you can actually see raptors in the background once they actually start going into the visitor center. You can see the raptors way in the background, actually running through and starting to form. There's another funny moment in this sequence with Mr. Kirby counting out change in the vending machine, and Billy just kicks the glass out, followed by Mr. Kirby kicking it, and absolutely nothing happens, and him hurting his leg, which, again, it's another cute moment. I feel like, again, this movie is a lot better than its reputation has.
Yeah.
I really feel that this is a extremely underrated movie. Let's do it that way.
It is.
Yeah.
And now we actually get to see the...
It actually builds up to a great scary moment where the
this part, that's what I'm getting with the... raptors being much smarter than before, because we see Amanda, Mrs. Kirby, look at all the different stages of the raptor and ending at one that appears to be fully formed, and it turns out it's a living raptor that actually disguised itself as a specimen in a jar. And now the raptors in this movie are insanely smart. They were intelligent enough in the first one to open doors, but these ones are super geniuses. They're almost as Grant said earlier, they're almost as smart as primates, which is shown when Billy and Mrs. Kirby manage to trap one of the raptors behind the door, and it actually manages to call for help from its fellow brethren. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, her fellow
the dinosaurs are female.
Unless they're trans. Like, I will say this. I want to point this out for the raptors.
We're not going to get into there.
Yep, a couple things.
We're not going to.
A couple things. First of all, a positive, or rather, behind-the-scenes facts: the iconic honking of the Velociraptor. That was actually accomplished by putting together a mating call of a tortoise and I don't know what else, but I think a type of bird.
A goose.
Crane. A crane. I think it was a crane.
I did not know that. Wow.
Actually, but
I thought it was a goose.
However, a negative I will point out is, for those who criticize the CGI, I criticize it too, but I also have to sadly criticize some of the animatronics, particularly the raptors. In the original, the raptors were a little more expressive. They were more livelier feeling. Remember that the scene with Tim and Lex escaping? They're running out, and it zooms in on this run raptor, like, I'm after you. Like, you see its lips curl, sneer, and its eyes narrow. Like, in this one, unless I'm wrong, they don't really have that kind of detail. They do blink, but aside from that, when they move their mouth, it feels like just a puppeteer, like moving like a Muppet.
I never really got that from them. I always felt they were actually really expressive in this movie, especially with some of the ones they give off later on in the film when they corner our heroes later on. But again, we'll get to that.
Different tastes.
So the actual raptor chase sequence is good, but here's one thing that I do have to agree with you on. The CGI in this sequence, some of the dinosaurs look a little fake in this part.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but Stegosaurus, I think it looks a little bit off. Maybe because they said, during the daytime in the direct sunshine, if it was set at night, they probably could have hit it a little more.
They hit it a little better.
For what it is, it still looks really good. And it's only a couple of them that look bad, not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now we get to Udesky's death, which is one of
people
always say about Zara's death from Jurassic World.
It's probably one of the most
Mr. Udesky's death
ever.
It is because he's immobilized by the raptors. He's not dead, but he is immobilized by the raptors, who basically use him as a trap for the other humans. And when Billy realizes what they're doing, he leads the Kirbys away. And when they don't come, the raptor basically breaks Udesky's neck in like a violent way on screen. And
he's still
apparently, And the thing too is that Udesky's fate was going to be a lot different, because there are still shots of a different version of the scene, which would have had Udesky basically fighting them off with a makeshift spear made out of a stick. And screenshots of it exist, but the footage has never resurfaced in any capacity. So I don't know if we'll ever get to see that on like maybe a Blu-ray or like a whatever digital remastering they come up with. But it would be nice if we actually get to see that alternate scene. Udesky still dies in the same way, but he goes out fighting.
Yeah, for what we saw,
absolutely.
This is just cruel and horrific. Like his scream and the fact that we've seen that he's probably conscious and aware of what's going on, even with the he can't move while the raptor's holding his leg. I can't imagine the terror he was feeling. Like, it's just
exactly.
That is true.
Yep. But now we actually get to see Eric has managed to be alive, and he saves Grant from the raptors with the smoke bombs.
Yeah.
It turns out that he's been surviving in a supply truck, and he is absolutely shocked over how long he's been on the island.
Like he's been in hell for that long. I think with
Eric, he is a real... Yeah, exactly. But I feel Eric is a really compelling character. I think Lex and Tim are iconic, and Kelly from Lost World is another good character. But I think I like Eric because he is more resourceful. He is more, maybe not as realistic, but he's more of a compelling character, shall we say.
It could be worse. It could be the characters from Jurassic World. It could be the
Yeah. That's it. Yes. And we're going to get to that when we get to Jurassic World next week. So there's a good part with Eric and Grant and Alan Grant's conversation together. It has a lot of good parts with Eric likes Grant's first book. And sorry.
When you say that he likes Grant's first book, he's like, I read your two books. The first one was better. Like when in my head I was like, oh gee, I wonder what that's referring to. It's not like.
But then Grant has that great line. They didn't try to eat me yet, which great line right there. And then Grant says, "Did you read Malcolm?" And he's like, "Yeah, but everything's chaos. He seems just high on himself." And Alan just smirks and he says, "Well, that's two things we now have in common." Again, this movie really has fantastic writing. I feel that this is really underrated for that as well. Exactly. So. We get to see a brief return of the compies, who were so prevalent and in part 2, as they try to swarm Eric with Grant helping to drive them away. And we actually get to see Eric reunite with his parents after hearing the cell phone ringtone. And this is probably one of the better plot twists in the movie. It turns out the phone was eaten by the Spinosaurus when she ate Nash earlier on the plane. And the cell phone is in its stomach, stomach rather. And it is so great.
At this point...
Of course, now we lead to another Spinosaurus chase, which, again, looks pretty good. With the banging through the doors and whatnot.
At this point, with the cell phone coming from the Spinosaurus stomach, this is the point where I say... This is not like the other Jurassic Park movies. It's a lot dumber, and it's aware of it. It's just sit back, have a good time, enjoy yourself, and you will.
It does work for the franchise, though. It does work as kind of a breather for the franchise. It's not as impactful as the first, but I actually do like it a lot better than Lost World. Not a lot better, but I do like this better than Lost World. I think maybe because
it's a little
bit more jovial compared to the Lost World, which
everyone was miserable
bleak in some parts. But
I think it's mostly
exactly. Well, not really, but I can see where you're coming from.
And
so they get to another. Sorry.
As for that pain we were getting to, probably the dumbest thing in one of the dumbest things in the entire franchise.
We're almost there with it.
Take it away.
So the group is hiding out in another research facility area. And it turns out that Billy has revealed to have stolen the raptor eggs because he wants to try and sell them to help fund their research. And of course, Grant is rightfully horrified and absolutely disgusted with Billy for doing it and basically chews him out.
Yeah.
And
I wish he would have said, instead of saying some of the worst things ever happened came from the best intentions, like, I wish he would have said, well, Billy, you know the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like,
yeah.
I kind of like the line as it is, but that could have worked too. I can kind of see it. So yeah, now it turns out that the group basically goes to an area with a lot of mesh and a lot of chain fences and whatnot, and it turns out to be, probably for me at least, the most unique setting of this movie.
Yeah,
it's a giant aviary for pterodons, and I'm gonna say this right now: the Spinosaurs is really, really fantastic and whatnot. The pterodons are absolutely fantastic. For me, they are the standout of this movie.
They
the
are.
CGI on them, they look menacing. They look a proper amount of fear. Even like when Eric is picked up and dropped in its nest, and the pterodon chicks, I guess you'd call them, are pecking at him. And the pterodon chicks are actually little animatronics, which again, a very nice touch there.
One thing I want to point out,
it really is great. This entire sorry, go ahead.
Remember the opening, and you ask, where the hell did those guys go? Well, during the scene, Eric throws a human skull at the chicks. Like, that, I'd like to think...
I never thought of that before, but wow, that is actually a decent theory. Yeah, I never thought of that before. Apparently, the pterodons were supposed to be a sequence in The Lost World, but it got reused here, and I'm so glad it did, because this, to me, is the standout of the movie, in my opinion. One of the most best moments of the entire movie, in my opinion.
Not only one of the best moments of the movie.
Weird?
What's up?
You know what's weird?
Racing? Yeah, Angron.
You want to know what's weird? The fact, like, I used to believe that there was a scene where, the mom actually legit died, like, from the things, and not like the guy, not like Billy.
Yeah,
which was very weird.
Yeah, Billy sacrificed himself to save Eric from the pterodons, and it leaves Grant to actually feel guilty about what he did. But it's funny how memory is like that, because sometimes if we haven't seen him for a very, very long time, I sometimes misremember about Udesky. I keep thinking sometimes he dies during this sequence, and it's like the pterodons that get him rather than the velociraptors. But it really is funny how memories like that. I actually have to.
I'm with you on this. There are two standout moments. This and a scene later on, which we'll get to. Which one of my favorite parts of this is the build-up. It's spectacular. The atmosphere is terrific, and I especially love how the action starts with the cut into Eric holding onto the rail, and it shakes and the slow reveal of the pterodactyl and Bill's. I have to give credit to the actor Trevor Morgan for his performance here. Like, his scream is he's not surprised.
It is legit haunting, and you can tell that Grant himself is really haunted by this, especially with what he thinks is the last supposed words he told to Billy. So now they find a boat and they sail past some more peaceful dinosaurs, which again is a staple of the Jurassic Park franchise, or at least the first three.
This part is where I realized my big problem with the effects. It's not so much how
Go ahead, then I'll talk my thing about it.
Yeah, it's not so much how real they look. It's rather how they're designed. Like, to me, I feel like the dinosaurs are just a touch too cartoony looking. Like, not the intimidating ones, like the Spinosaurus, the T-Rex, the Velociraptors, and especially the pterodactyls. Those are fantastically designed. But the peaceful ones, this is one of the lesser effects, and honestly, I was kind of giggling over the fact that they had stripes. Like, they had stripes. Like, I was giggling. Also, one thing I want to point out, first of all, this moment was in the first film, but it was like the first time we ever saw the dinosaurs. Like, it
was like the majesty of it. I understand what you're saying, but for me personally, sorry, go ahead.
The scene that follows up, like the Brontosaurus scene, what I liked about that one in the original was that it wasn't a grand big spectacle. It was a small moment. it could have been grand, but it was a small moment, a nice moment, a character building moment. It was small. It was sort of simpler and more relaxed. Like you kind of admired it. But here it's like a big grand moment, and it's like
distracting.
It's kind of distracting for me. Like, and again, in my opinion, I don't mean to sound like a complete heartless monster and
you're not heartless.
Contradictory man, but I just didn't think the effects looked really, really that great here.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that, but at least for me, in my opinion, I still think they look good. Maybe because I don't really look that in depth into the sequence. I feel like for me, it's not really about so much the appearance as it is the intention. I feel like the intention of this scene showing that dinosaurs can still be, majestic, beautiful, but yet dangerous creatures. Absolutely. It does come across, and the astronauts versus astronomers speech is a really poignant one, and it's one that I'm surprised does not get mentioned more in terms of actually pretty motivational movie speeches in that. And honestly, so for me at least, I don't think any of the effects in this movie, aside from a couple of dinosaurs during the aforementioned raptor chase sequence, I think for me, at least, the effects of this movie are uniformly really good, at least in my opinion. But again, this is how I feel about it. But yes,
I have to.
Them sailing past is a nice sequence in it.
I see where you're coming from, and maybe it's just kind of the perfectionist filmmaker in me, but the effects didn't look that great. The music was great, though. I'm sad they didn't get John Williams back, but Don Davis, who did the Matrix films, did a great job composing this movie.
Ooh, wow, I did not know that. That is great.
One more thing that kind of leads into the next moment. You left out probably one of Ian Malcolm's funniest lines in Jurassic Park when you were talking about it in your previous cast. That is one big pile of shit.
Yeah, and of course we get to that now with them having to basically dig through the Spinosaurus' dropping, shall we say, for the ringing phone, because otherwise they won't find it. And it turns out the phone, the reason it's been ringing the entire time, it's been like an ad for like a timeshare, which is another funny moment. And again, this movie really is a lot wittier, I think, than people give it credit for.
It's funny.
But now we get to, in my opinion, what is the second greatest sequence of this movie.
Me too.
Which is the Spinosaurus attack on the river, which is absolutely fantastic.
Before you guys go into this, I want to say this. It does lead to probably one of my favorite shots in the film, which is, of course, when it's behind the boat and what I think is a callback to Spielberg's. What I think is a callback to Jaws.
Yes, it is definitely a Jaws reference with the Spinosaurus fin slowly rising up. I got it on the first viewing I ever did. Like, oh yeah, that's some Jaws. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And the entire sequence is just so badass, especially when the lake is set on fire and it looks like the Spinosaurus is burning. And there is another bit of a funny part with this, with Alan trying to call Ellie, but her son Charlie gets it, and he is distracted by another dinosaur on the television. Exactly. It's another funny moment.
Fun fact.
Yeah, that's funny because it cuts from Charlie happily watching it to the Spinosaurus just absolutely wrecking the boat, and when Ellie finally picks up, Alan is basically drowning underneath the water.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
Sorry. Fun fact. Barney has a movie, Barney's Great Adventure. Why I bring this up is because one of the actors in it is Trevor Morgan, the same guy who played Eric in this movie. I just have to point that out.
Kidding.
Yeah, I'm not. That kid is the same one who actually danced with Barney a couple years back.
Wow. Okay, now I wonder if that was intentional. Wow. I never knew that before this. That is.
It reminds me of one of the critic jokes where Trevor Morgan's like, I wish for a real adventure. That would be cool. And then the critic's like, careful what you wish for. And it cuts to him being attacked by the pterodactyls in this movie.
Oh God, that's great.
That's
great.
That is a good touch.
Yeah. That is. That's witty. Wow. I'll give that. So basically the entire sequence is incredibly awesome. The scene with the fire being set off right near the Spinosaurus, almost like he's on fire, and she's still coming towards them, is fantastic. And Mr. Kirby basically saves them by leaping into the water, and we think he's dead, but it turns out he's okay because of the aforementioned champion swimming athletics that he had. And now we get to the part with the raptors, and this is a fascinating sequence to me, that the raptor voice box comes into play again, because Alan uses it to actually communicate with the raptors. Now, we don't know what he's saying to them. We don't know what they're saying, because, of course, no subtitles or anything. But it is a really, really neat sequence with how Grant actually manages to not like in the other movies where they basically have to kill the raptors. In the first one, they're killed by the T-Rex. In the second one, they're killed by the T-Rex / Kelly when she knocks one out of the window, and the hunters, even though the hunters do get slaughtered by them as well. But in this one, the raptors are really left alone. They're more of like I feel like in this one, they have a lot more character compared to Lost World. Maybe not as much as they did in the first Jurassic Park, but they still are really, really good characters. In this one, they have more personality.
Hell hath no theory like a mother's scorn. They like in this one, they're not the primary antagonist or the secondary antagonist. They just want their eggs back.
It's the Spinosaurus, of course. Exactly. That is something that I really liked that they did, and they do follow up with that in the Jurassic World movies. One of the few positives I could say, that the Velociraptors are not inherently evil like they are in the first two movies, but we'll get to that next week. So Mrs. Kirby manages to slowly slide the eggs over to them, and the raptors basically take their eggs and leave them alone. So they finally, after all this, make it to the coast. And it turns out, there's a man waiting for them, calling them out, which is another great callback where they all scream, "That's a very bad idea," to the guy. And it turns out the entire U.S. military shows up to save the group, thanks to Ellie, which is another great moment.
Yeah.
And Billy is revealed to be alive. He was not killed by the pterodons. And he gives Alan his hat back, which I always took as possibly an Indiana Jones reference.
Yeah,
like Indy always grabbing his hat after a scenario. He saved Alan's hat.
Yeah.
I always kind of took it. It might not be. It might just be me reading too much into it. But
I cannot begin to name the amount of references to that sort of thing.
Yeah, there are. It has been referenced many times, and I figured because of the whole Spielberg connection.
Yeah.
So
unsurprisingly,
it takes off, and we think everything is.
Unsurprisingly, originally. Billy was supposed to have been killed off, but the actor objected, so they wrote him in at the last minute. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I can see that. It seems a little far-fetched how he survived, although it is kind of a nice moment between him and Grant that he did. And so, of course, they fly away in the helicopter like the first one. You think, it's a nice, peaceful ending, but no. The pterodons managed to escape from the island, and they're heading towards the mainland, which is never brought up in the next movie, but which is kind of a shame. But we'll talk more about what Jurassic Park 4 was going to be in our Jurassic World episode next week. And yeah, that's basically it. Despite mixed critical reception, the movie did extremely well at the box office. Maybe not as well as like the first two, but it still made a lot of money in the summer of 2001. And I like it. I think it's a fun time. And fun fact, it is actually Sam Neill's favorite of the franchise.
Okay.
Because it is for him, he said he had the best time on it. He had fun filming it, and he really enjoyed the final product. He actually made a statement when Dominion came out that he hoped that fans would watch it and reevaluate it as a pretty good movie. And I have to agree with him. I mean, it's not my favorite, but it is way better than people say it is. People talk about this movie in the same breath as like some other bad sequels, and I think that's really unfair. I don't think this is a bad movie in the slightest. I think this is it might not be like an all-time classic like the first Jurassic Park, but it is an extremely fun time. It is probably actually my second favorite of the franchise, tied maybe with Jurassic World, which again we'll talk a little bit about next week. So yeah, now it is time for the question of the week. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Never. You said what you said. I'll stop talking.
No. There's nothing to
good.
apologize. Everything's cool. Everything's cool. It's all good. It's all good.
For those who think for those who think I didn't like it, I did. I just have to acknowledge I'm a little more critical, but I still had a whole lot of fun with it because to me it's a perfect film to just sort of shut your brain off and laugh at how dumb some of the characters are and have fun with the action pieces because let's be fair, this is a fun movie. I recommend it. It's a lot more fun than The Lost World.
Yes, I definitely have to agree with you there. So now it is time for the question of the episode, which is what are movies that you know aren't good, but you like them anyway? And I have several of them that, I know they're not like all-time classic movies, but there are ones that I enjoy. One of them is going to be something that we're going to be talking about in a couple of months, so I'll probably save most of the discussion for when we do that one, Godzilla 98. But again, we'll talk about that when we talk about Godzilla 98, which will probably be in October.
That's a lot of fish.
Around Halloween for its 25th anniversary. Yep. Yeah, I know. I just love it. I feel Matthew Broderick, it came out at a time period where you could actually cast Matthew Broderick in an action movie, and he didn't have to take like 5,000 steroids or something. It feels like it does have a lot of good moments. Another set of movies that I enjoy, I know a lot of people don't like them, and I can kind of understand it, but for me, I actually do like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin quite a bit. They are fun times. They're not like, if they're actually continuity with the original Burton movies, it doesn't make sense. If you look at them as like alternate universes or like more of a Silver Age type of universe, then they are fun times. That's how I basically look at it anyway. They're not really continuations of Burton's Batman, like Batman Returns. They're more of like AU's alternate universes that are set in the Silver Age. But despite that, I think they're a lot of fun. I'm sorry. I mean, you have Arnold as Mr. Freeze. He's having the time of his life. I mean, you can tell he loves every single second of his screen time. He probably had more fun on this movie than anything he did before or since.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of want to say that, like, unlike Gary Oldman's performance, where, like, he said he later hated it, unlike his performance, which actually... he looked like he was having a lot of fun. Yeah. Here, it actually does look like he was having a real grand old time.
Yeah, I can definitely see
and
that.
All.
Yeah. But again, those are probably the two that I think. What was it? Honest Trailers made a comment about like Batman Forever, saying, "Oh, this is the worst movie that I know I've seen 10,000 times." And I wouldn't go so far as to say it's like a really bad movie at all, but it is one that for me is like endlessly rewatchable. Like when it comes on TV, it's like, oh hey, yeah, Batman Forever's on. It's even like if it's like even halfway through, it's like, oh cool, Batman Forever, and then I just watch the rest of it. Yeah, at least that's how I feel. So, Angron, what would you say are some movies that aren't like stone cold classics or are considered to be somewhat weaker, but you enjoy?
Yeah. Two ultimately come to mind in that regard. The first one is Lightyear, a more recent one. Yeah, I tend to look at it more like it's not necessarily a Toy Story continuation, and honestly, with Buzz Lightyear Star Command in question, it honestly kind of feels a little iffy, but I still like it. It has a sort of feel that I can get behind, that's comfortable, that's nice, that I really enjoyed. It's at least good for a single viewing, all things considered. The second one, however, The Mummy Returns. Like since I saw it,
I love them first two Mummy movies. Mummy Returns, I actually like unironically. That is a movie that I don't even consider somewhat weak. It is a movie that I know it has the CGI Dwayne Johnson that, let's face it, has not aged the best, but it is fun. I'm sorry. And hottest of hot takes here, and I don't care what anyone says, Rick O'Connell, for me, is cooler than Indiana Jones. I'm sorry. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I actually think Rick O'Connell is a cooler character.
Nice. And another movie, last one, because best of threes. I really enjoy the Speed Racer movie. Like, a lot of people
that's an
don't
unironic
like
classic. I think that's not even like a so bad it's good thing. That's an unironic classic. I think, especially nowadays.
It's unironically classic. Like, it has amazing animation, and like for the time, it really had amazing action, amazing effects. Like, yeah, a lot of people say that it hurts to look at. I was not one of those people. And honestly, the whole blending live action animation styles, it was really fun to watch and enjoy. And it looked like okay, yeah, I will say this. The drama, for the most part, can be a little iffy, but I didn't think it was too distracting, all things considered. The somber moments were really amazing, and the action and whatnot, blew me out of the water. Like, man, this was a movie that I really will absolutely die on the hill for, all things considered.
Yeah.
Okay, Stryker?
I actually have two now that you've mentioned Indiana Jones, by the way.
Oh?
Go ahead.
The first one I'm going to mention is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, actually.
Absolutely.
That's legit good. I'm sorry, that is legit
really
a good
fun.
movie.
Yeah. They've all been consistent, save for maybe Temple of Doom, sort of, but I really enjoy all of them.
Honestly, I did enjoy Temple of Doom, believe it or not.
Nice.
But yeah, like, my first one I'm going to mention is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, because when I first saw that, when I got it on DVD, it was actually kind of impressive. And at the time, a lot of people were saying that it was actually like the worst of the Indiana Jones series.
It really is not. I don't think any of them are bad, to be honest, except, of course, maybe Dial of Destiny. Haven't really seen it yet, but we'll talk about it.
I haven't seen it either, but I will.
I've heard things. I have heard things. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard things too. But yeah, once I've seen Dial of Destiny, I will say my opinion on it. But it's Disney, so of course I'm not holding my breath just yet on that one.
Okay.
And the second one, my second one, I will say, it was one of the first movies I ever saw.
Oh?
The Black Cauldron.
Nice. Yeah. I really enjoyed that movie too.
A lot of people really hated this movie when it first came out. Plus, it actually was beaten at the box office by Care Bears.
Ooh.
Ouch,
I mean, I really enjoy Home on the Range too, but like, that's pretty low.
That's a fun one.
Yeah. Yep. Home on the Range is underrated.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It was like the source of many of my childhood favorites, as well as like when I was as I was growing up, it kind of also formed a lot of my tastes.
I can definitely see that. It definitely has that classic fantasy vibe that was really popular in like the 80s at the time.
Yeah.
With stuff like Bluth and
my personal favorite thing about it is that like actually no, not like a personal favorite thing. I was gonna two things I will say about it. One thing is that a lot of people hate this because it was like based on a book series, The Chronicles of Prydain, and a lot of people complained that it was like not faithful to the original book whatsoever.
Yeah.
And while I do agree, I'm someone that just hasn't read the original series yet. Plus, like it was named after the second book of the series, which I actually own, but I gotta buy the rest of the series so I can read the rest of it.
My family owns the entire series, to my knowledge.
Oh,
that's
wow.
awesome.
Yeah,
and my personal favorite thing about the movie is actually the Horned King.
The Horned King is a really great villain.
Of all time. Exactly.
He's a legit lich. He's a lich, and I like it.
He is awesome.
He is so loved that in Japan, there's an attraction that actually features him.
Nice.
That is so cool.
Walt Disney Japan.
That is awesome. All right, Sharvoun. Oh, whoop. Sorry.
In fact, it was just he's only in one attraction, and it's only in Japan, by the way.
Well, at least he got one. That's a lot more than some other characters get.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Sharvoun, what would you have to say?
What did you say? It's your guilty pleasure, so to speak?
I have some, like a couple. I'm one of. I want to say Mars Attacks, but I have not seen that one yet. But
Mars Attacks is great. Definitely check it out. It's classic.
It's great. My first one, which may get you guys angry, is Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald and Where to Find Them. The first two Fantastic Beasts movies, which I know
they're pretty good.
Was good, in my opinion. Second one kind of dropped the ball, but I can see why you like it.
The second one in particular, I know it's terrible, and the ending does piss me off. But there are elements of it that I do like. The heartbreaking, the relationship between Queenie and Jacob, Johnny Depp as Gellert Grindelwald, Jude Law as Dump. When I think this is a perfect representation, in my opinion, of a young Dumbledore. Like, he is incredible. Also,
Dumbledore.
No, I don't care. Yes, Dumbledore, who remains calm throughout the entire thing. Like, he doesn't go up to Snoot Scamander and is like, "Did you buy me my carton of eggs?" and shakes him like. I also like Johnny Depp. I also like Johnny Depp.
We'll be talking about that one day.
Yeah, I like Johnny Depp
maybe.
as Grindelwald. Like, honestly, I think the problem with Johnny Depp is that the makeup, when he has his hair short, looks ridiculous. He should have kept it long, but
move a little closer to the mic.
Yeah, sound a little faint there.
Has so much charisma. He has so much fun in this. I really do like it.
Yeah, move a little closer to the mic. You're a little quiet.
A little faint there, but it's okay.
Is this better? Is this better?
Yeah, better. Way better.
Okay.
Way better. Fine. Continue.
My second one, which I will say is also terrible. It's the live action Jim Carrey Grinch. Like, before people get angry.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, before people get angry, I know it's terrible. I know it's a bad movie, and I know it pisses on everything that Dr. Seuss does. But it is funny as hell. Jim Carrey is, and I will say this also: the makeup is fan-fucking-tastic.
Oh no, it is that is one of the best pieces of I think makeup and costume in any movie ever. But, he really does look like the character. I mean, Jim Carrey is probably one of the few people that can actually pull off that iconic grin really, really well. I mean, also, he is the perfect actor for the role.
In my opinion, yes, that's also another thing I want to get to. Not only did I laugh hard at many of Jim Carrey's jokes, like, I always quote to myself, "If you utter so much as one syllable, I'll hunt you down and cut you like a fish."
I will always defend that movie. That was really good.
The fact is, Jim Carrey just owns the role. Like, he was miserable under that makeup. He said that he hated the makeup, but he still worked with it. If you want proof of, before anybody says maybe it's not all that impressive and will die, watch Mike Myers in The Cat in the Hat. Like, from frame one, he does not look happy in it. Like, and it shows. Like, with Jim Carrey as the Grinch, he's not happy. He hated the makeup, but he still worked with it, and he had enough energy. With Mike Myers as the Cat in the Hat, it's like he hated the makeup. He didn't like working with it. Sadly, it shows. Like,
and also that Jim Carrey is a completely different performer than Mike Myers.
Myers has different strengths and weaknesses.
Different style of performing, basically. I can
You're comparing Eggman with freaking Austin Powers here.
Yes, exactly.
Shrek, if you want to get tentacles.
Yeah.
It's not a very good movie, but fuck it, I laugh hard when I see it. Like, it's just another film that I will defend till the end of my days, which may go under the quality The Emperor's New Groove. Like,
that's absolutely a fun film.
Like, that's just a good movie.
Classic.
So that is a legit good time.
When the Nostalgia Critic was talking about not being able to separate the character from the performance, one thing that comes to mind is Eartha Kitt as Yzma. Like, the animation, the design, the facial expressions, they fit so flawlessly with her voice. Like, one of my favorite moments in all of animation is just Yzma reacting to figuring out that Cusco's alive, and the voice alone is amazing. He's still alive! That read is amazing alone, but the face she makes and the animation on her It is.
I think at this point it's a legit classic. It's not even like a guilty pleasure. I think that movie, to me at least, is legitimately a good one.
It's one of my all-time favorite comedies. But along with that, I reiterate, the first I know these three movies are not very good, but I like The Grinch and I like the first two Fantastic Beasts movies. But before everybody goes on me, I have not seen the third one. The ending kind of let me say, "Oh God!" Any sort of enjoyment I had with this goes straight right out the window. I was enjoying this film until you got to that point, and you lost me. You just lost me.
See. Okay.
Yeah. I will also tell you. Evie had to.
He has some technical difficulties, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll ask him a little bit. So
I will
now
tell you this right. I will say this right now about Fantastic Beasts. By the way, the third one. Remember the whole thing with Johnny Depp?
Yeah. Let's not get into that. Let's not get into that. Okay.
What?
Well, because of that,
let's not really get into that. Let's try to avoid that kind of stuff.
He actually got fired.
I know he did, but let's try to avoid that kind of stuff.
Let's avoid it. No politics.
Right. So, LuckyEevee, what would you have to say is your favorite guilty pleasure movie?
Well, like I said, I don't really watch many movies.
But of the ones that you have seen, which one is one that you know isn't good, but that you really, really enjoy?
That's the thing. I've never really watched any movie like that.
Not even one of the Pokemon movies?
I don't even really watch the Pokemon movies all that much.
Okay.
I would say watch. I try to avoid bad movies, but I'm trying to get in the habit of saying to myself, do watch movies that are considered bad. Maybe you'll like them, maybe you won't.
I mean, I did try watching the Kalos movies.
Yeah, I did the same thing with Titan AE. I really enjoyed it. It was awesome.
Yeah. Same. So now it is time for the patent-pending Dragoness Scale, where we basically rank the Dragonesses on a scale from 1 to 10, the female dinosaurs in this case. And for the Jurassic Park 3 dinosaurs, I am going to give them a pretty high score of 8 out of 10. I would give them maybe a 9 if I'm really generous, but for now, I think I have to stick with 8 out of 10. I feel like I do like what they did with the Raptors. I like that they gave them more independence. They gave them more of a character. They weren't as evil villains as in the first few ones. I like that the Spinosaurus seems to be a legit dangerous threat to them. And I know they're technically not considered dinosaurs, but for the purpose of this podcast, we are going to consider them for that. And the entire sequence with the pterodons are just so well done that I feel that they deserve this score. I feel like it is a step up from the 7 out of 10 that the Lost World dinosaurs got. And that's what I'm giving them. So, Angron?
I am going to personally say, I'm going to personally keep it at a 7 out of 10, like before, because, there's a lot more character here, but honestly, my nitpicks from the past aside, it wouldn't be until the Jurassic World franchise where we would really get to meat and potatoes of dinosaur characters and whatnot. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. So, Stryker?
I think I have to go with the same as you, 8 out of 10, because I can't think of anything much to say on the dinosaurs in this movie.
Yeah.
I thought they were honestly pretty good, but at the same time, it was
pretty basic.
I understand. I understand what you're talking about.
Stuff we've seen before.
Yeah. Okay. Our special guest for this episode, Sharvoun, what would you have to say? At a scale from 1 to 10, what would you rank the dinosaurs in JP3?
I'm glad you guys really did enjoy them. And granted, I love the sequences that come from them. I love the Spinosaurus, and I love the pterodactyls. But for me personally, the effects were a little too not terrible, but dated. I will say that the effects were a little too dated for my taste, and honestly, the dinosaurs themselves didn't look very great. Didn't look all that great. It's just mostly the design aspect. I didn't like how overly colorful some of them came across, and I'm gonna be honest. I'm just gonna give them a kind of 7 out of 10, or maybe 6 out of 10. Maybe 6 out of 10 for me. Like, they're fun to watch. They are fun. The sequences are some of the best in the franchise. Like, this is a legit action adventure, whereas I consider the first Jurassic Park film a sort of escape thriller. This is an action adventure, and they take full advantage of what they could do with the dinosaurs. They have fun here. This is a fun movie, but it is a dated one, so I have to deduct points on that. But if for those who think I didn't enjoy the dinosaurs, I did. It was a lot of fun. I'll probably go back to it again. Not as much as the first one, but from what I hear of the second one, probably a lot more than the second one.
Okay, and LuckyEevee?
I guess 5 out of 10.
All right. Okay, and if you have any questions, or if you want to debate over who would win in a fight between a T-Rex and a Spinosaurus, you can feel free to email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com or visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Next time, we'll be talking about the 2015 movie Jurassic World, continuing part of our Jurassic July series, and we're finally getting to the second trilogy in the whole Jurassic Park franchise.
Pray for them,
thank
people.
you guys so much for watching this. Yep.
Yep.
And until next week, thank you guys so much for listening, and take care.
Bye!
Later, y'all. Peace.
Adios.